please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with Todd Zola of RotoWire and Masters Ball. Always great to be talking with you, Todd. Actually, we want to make the focus of the show, per request from somebody here at the company, actually, kind of a sleeper pod. Obviously, we've been talking sleepers, Todd, for, 5 months? But kind of the last hurrah and just kind of getting it on record a little bit. Obviously,
Sleeper.
our sleepers
Define
already on.
Sleeper.
Yeah, that's true.
No,
Very hard to define nowadays.
Well, and everybody knows it. It's cliche to talk about that, but I think there are players that we're both ahead of the field on, and I mean everybody knows, TJ Antone. Maybe they don't know all of mine, but it's all good. Your Antone there. I know we'll talk a little news, but sounds like he may get a shot at closing.
Yeah, man. I had heard back in December when they traded Raisel Iglesias, David Bell kind of said that was a possibility.
Yeah,
well,
and
I've heard
see.
lately rumors of maybe a haterish role. So yeah, we'll see. I did take Amir Garrett last night in the RotoWire Stake League, which is a 16-team league where the bottom half of the standings has to buy the top half of dinner. We, of course, scrapped the stake bet last year, in-person stake bet. But this year, we're back at it, so I'm glad we got
Nice.
16 participants. That'll be fun. But let's talk about some news before we get into our sleepers. This will
Sure.
be the last hurrah sleeper pod, just maybe for those late comers who didn't maybe do a ton of prep. Life gets in the way sometimes. And if you're kind of just getting into the swing of things and your draft's coming up, we'll have you covered with sleepers. But Nick Anderson, Todd, out past the All-Star break for the Rays. Now, a lot of people had him as the presumptive closer. We're drafting him as such. I'm not trying to, give ourselves too big of a pat on the back, but we had Diego Castillo heading up that committee just with the way things ended last year. Pete Fairbanks has actually been one of my favorite sleepers this year. Now, you'd think those two obviously get a bump up, but anybody else here, or is it your primary focus pretty much on Castillo and Fairbanks?
Yeah. Now the whole Anderson thing. I mean, I'll say it too because I know you were into this guy, but I was questioning both Anderson and James Karinchak being drafted in the 7th round, and I know that Karinchak still could get the job, but this is all me vamping to check out my list to see who else could get saves. I've got Andrew Kittredge down for a couple just because it's not a closer situation. It's just a scenario where he may just stay in the game. But no, I think the two main guys are if you're looking for saves, it's Castillo and Fairbanks, and I've split between the two of them. Someone else would get saves because it's Cleveland. It's Cleveland. I'm sorry, it's Tampa, right?
Yeah.
And the
12 Rays are in the save.
Yeah, Oliver Drake will get a save, but I'm not, because he's going to stay in the game or whatever. Chaz Rowe's going to get a save, but if you're looking to, especially this year, where you can roster a guy like Castillo or Fairbanks, even though they're not getting 35 saves and still be useful, those are the two you want to target.
I'm with you. I wonder if maybe like Colin McHugh could sneak in there. Somebody's going to, but no. My draft focus is primarily on those two, and I kind of like Fairbanks a little bit because usually you can get him a little bit after Castillo. Do you have a preference between those two? Would you rather just wait and see if you can grab Fairbanks?
Fairbanks, the problem with Fairbanks is he comes with a little collateral damage, potential whip damage.
Yeah, he's a little wild.
Yeah, if he gets it in control, pardon the pun, then he could actually run with the job. Although I don't know that anybody's going to run with that job. I suppose if I kind of really wanted saves, I would go for Castillo. If I was looking for the strikeouts and the draft for what goes good and not for what goes bad, I want Fairbanks. And I got Fairbanks in a lot of early drafts that were of the type. My first two drafts were you get to make moves twice a week, and I like to have relievers in that scenario so that you don't have a starter for 7 games and he's only pitching half of the week. You have the reliever in for the other half, and I had Fairbanks, and both of those. And I think we talked about it because I wrote about one of them on the site, or I wrote both of them on the site, and I was questioning why so heavy on Fairbanks, and it was just because of that strikeouts and the potential to slop into some saves. Anderson's scenario is weird. He's supposed to come back, but there's still nothing to say that he won't still get TJ, right? Have we really come to the point where we can call it TJ? That's how common it is now.
Yeah, it's pretty much a rite of passage. Pretty much.
And I don't mean your guy.
Yeah, hopefully TJ doesn't need TJ eventually. Yeah, with James, we went the really cheap route in the main event on Wednesday night, but we did not get Fairbanks. We got Alvarado, Wittgren, Ottavino, and Ian Kennedy, but I'm a little mad that we didn't get Fairbanks to kind of round out that.
You did pretty darn good, though, friend. I mean, those are some pretty. I mean, Kennedy's turning it on, right?
Yeah, Kennedy. I think he fanned 3 yesterday in a scoreless inning in that mix, certainly. And yeah, I'm with you. Like I was on the Karinchak train early in the draft season, but I should have heeded your warnings earlier, Todd. But now I'm fully on the Wittgren train.
I hope you're not counting on 35 saves from him, right?
No.
I think it still makes sense that Karinchak gets the job.
Yeah.
But just when you're drafting him in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, I know but that's when he was being drafted. I
think I took him around there in the magazine mock draft, Karinchak.
Right. We don't have anything on the line in that, unfortunately, other than bragging rights and you buy me lunch at the Vegas meeting or whatever.
Yeah. It's always I kind of look back on that draft we did in December, and I had like Devin Williams and Karinchak, and at the time I'm thinking, well, here are 2 top relievers who, I think could end up in the closer role. Now, that is not the route.
A lot of strikeouts.
Go. Yeah, skates. But I wanted to just mention Tom Withers of the Associated Press. I mean, this was from March 23rd. So
he's going to close too?
No. But he said Franco has, with high praise for Nick Wittgren, who has been reliable and consistent from day one, he could be a closing option to open the year. So I love him as kind of one of those low-cost guys. Alvarado, too, I heard he was a little wild yesterday, but throwing 102, so I'm fully in. Yeah. Now, Todd, more news here. Obviously, we had the big injury to Eloy Jimenez. I don't know why this guy's like hanging like he's Vince Carter or something over the fence. I mean, it sucks for him, but thinking, what are you doing just hanging by your shoulder there? But unfortunate, now he's out 5 to 6 months. Obviously, I removed him from the cheat sheet. Now they take another guy who's defensively challenged, move him to the outfield, and Andrew Vaughn. Now I'm happy it looks like he's going to start the season on time, but do you actually kind of worry a little bit about this guy playing left and maybe like Eloy, just maybe big lumbering guy, he could go down?
I think I'm more worried about Louis Robert crashing into him. I'm also worried about Lucas Giolito, and I'm worried about the pitching as well. So I don't want to say anybody can play left field, but I did watch Manny Ramirez play it for a number of years in Fenway Park.
That's a good point.
So it can be done. I don't know. They've got some defensive replacements. There's still some options. I mean, everybody's saying Yusei Puig, that ship has sailed. Ryan Braun, I don't think so. It wouldn't shock me if Vaughn shows competence out there that they bring back the Parrot, right? Encarnacion can come back, and
he's still looking to play.
He said, I mean, the note before Jimenez got hurt on the site was Encarnacion still wants to play. So it's like, oh, coincidence. But man, the sound wasn't on. I had the game on. And it's like, why are you even jumping for it? Doesn't prevent the injury's what it's done. It's like, dude, why'd you even jump for that? You weren't going to catch it. It wasn't even close.
And it's spring training.
Oh man, it's just that I've got Jimenez. First of all, I just like watching him play, but I've got Jimenez in a couple of places. I didn't remember that I did. So I'm kind of a little bit sad. I got Zach Allen in a couple of places, and I'm not as sad, hopefully. But it's been a rough week. I tweeted out, and we talking about the drafts. I tweeted out the rule is for every major player that you gets hurt, you have to join another draft.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm drafting so much this weekend.
Yeah.
That's why I'm drafting so much this weekend.
I love it. I actually somehow ended up avoiding Eloy completely. Just got lucky a little bit there because I had him pretty high.
Well, it's because you're drafting Vlad in the 3rd round.
Yeah, exactly. I do think it's a little. I guess it's confirmation bias, but I do love seeing Vlad consistently go in the 3rd in these big money main events. Just kind of confirmation.
I think
bias.
You should be more happy that he's consistently hitting the ball hard and out of the park.
Yeah,
that's the bigger thing,
about
right?
500 this spring. He looks great.
1 week from now, Clay, we're going to be talking about 2-start pitchers, and
that's right.
We're going to be talking about pitchers now. what we're going to find is there's just not a lot of two-start pitching. So we're also probably going to be pointing out the better matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of time it might be the primary pitcher, the bulk pitcher coming in after the opener. And, might as well plug it now. One of the great things about our probable pitching chart is the guys list the opener and the primary pitcher. So
yes.
you can see it. And
Tech guys added that.
It's a silly good chart, folks. If you're looking, if you still have looking to add to your subscription, opposing pitcher, it's fantastic. It's the best. I'm biased, but I said it before I was working, with you folks. It's the best in the business as far as two-start or just probable pitching chart. You know how it is because other people are signed to it, but we both, if we see a move, we go to update it, and literally by the time we see it, we go to update it, it's already done.
So Todd, we are talking sleepers per a in-house request, kind of our last sleeper hurrah. I'm assuming that person's kind of late getting around to his fantasy baseball prep. I don't know. Maybe not. But no, I'm good to just get these on record. And I got to say, I'm going to start actually with the deep dive and kind of one of my new favorite sleepers. Daulton Jefferies, A's pitcher, and James and I took him. Mostly, we're looking at it for a streamer early on, and it looks like with Mike Fiers out, Daulton Jefferies could be the guy. So I just wanted to throw him out there right away. I do have my NFBC Players Shares page up. So while sleepers is a tough term to define, as you mentioned, Todd, and maybe sleepers don't really exist nowadays, we'll at least try to pinpoint some guys we like later.
I'm with you on Jefferies, and I'm not going to say, I've been on him all along. I mean, I haven't talked a lot about him. But I just like the A's, and I like their scenario.
20 to 3K to walk this spring in 13 innings, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's opportunity there because, Luzardo and AJ Puck and Minaya, I think there'll be opportunities. Not necessarily these guys will get hurt, but the A's may want to slow things down and temper innings, et cetera, and I think Jefferies is an excellent target. I especially like Jefferies, for those of you in keeper leagues that draft minor leaguers, and that some people will be drafting the Spencer Torkelsons, et cetera, right? And if you want to compete this year and draft a minor leaguer, a guy like Jefferies is the way to go. Mm-hmm. Don't, if you're looking to compete and get someone that can help this year, I love doing that in my keeper leagues that, not dynasty, but keeper leagues that have a minor league draft, especially this year where there were some draftees last year that came in and are probably undrafted. But Tanner Houck, we mentioned Eduardo. Maybe we did it off air earlier. Eduardo Rodriguez.
Oh yeah, dead arm.
Dead arm. So if it turns in anything more, maybe Tanner Houck it gets a little bit early start, at least beginning. But the two of those, if I was doing a draft champions or a really deep league, I would try to get either Houck or Jefferies because I think they will help by the season's end.
Yeah, for Jefferies, I like that he's kind of built up already. 4 scoreless innings yesterday, 13 strikeouts over his last 2 appearances, and Martin Gallegos of MLB.com noted that he retired his last 9 batters and potentially moved himself further into contention for the expected season-opening vacancy in the rotation prompted by Mike Fiers' hip issues. So I guess, 25 years old, not even a lock, I guess, that he's in that rotation to start. But the way he's pitching, I'd be a little surprised if I didn't get a couple starts from him right away. And another sort of strategic element to all this is if you're going to stream a couple of your roster spots, why not stream the first week? Why not draft? And, we're going to talk about players to fab, right, or pick up on waivers. Literally, that's what I'm doing my last couple of roster spots in the draft. I don't care about rankings. I care about first week matchups, and Jefferies could have a decent matchup the first week. If you're going to, release him anyway or reserve or whatever you might do, draft that way. Don't draft the highest ranked guy that you may not use because he's playing the Yankees the first week. Draft your opening week lineup because it's fun. You're fungible spots anyway. And right now, Jefferies, I don't know the matchup. We can look it up. But I was just pulling that up because I actually hadn't looked. I just like the skills. But actually, it looks like it may be against the Dodgers at home. That's not ideal.
No, that isn't. This is a down the line. I don't think Matt Boyd is a sleeper, but I was like, oh, wow, Matt Boyd, he favors well in a piece I'm doing as far as if fewer home runs. That's not a secret with the softened ball that Boyd can get better. But he's got like Shane Bieber, Kenta Maeda, and then Zach Greinke. So yeah, Boyd may not be a guy to target for his first 3 games, but maybe he's a buy low, right? So anyway,
yeah, potentially. Well, I mentioned some of the other closer specs I got with James, Jose Alvarado, Nick Wittgren, Adam Ottavino, Ian Kennedy, and we talked a lot about Trevor Rogers on the starting pitching side. I'm a pretty big fan of Trevor Rogers. He's been one of my sleepers throughout draft season. Got him for $1 last weekend in Tout Wars. By the way, thank you, Todd, for all you do behind the scenes, you and the rest of the board, to make Tout Wars happen. That was a lot of fun last week, and I had fun just sitting in on the AL, just chatting it up with some guys in the public Zoom, and thanks again to everybody who stopped by and hung out. That was a good time. So, Todd, I do have my NFBC player shares up.
I'm taking notes because I have my draft tonight.
Well, this first one's not going to surprise you at all. 8 shares, 88.9%, the most obvious sleeper of all time, I said, and that's no disrespect to people who've called him a sleeper. It's just that, we all look at these same things. We see the gap between the surface stats and the skills. And Yusei Kikuchi, 8 shares. I'm pretty happy with it, Todd. Maybe I'm overexposed, but he has been, I guess, my top sleeper. At least when I put my money where my mouth is in drafts, he's the guy I end up with.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been with him. I've been on him. Let's give credit to Baseball HQ. We're sort of on him early, but even though we're both in the business, it's our we got to listen to what other people say.
Oh, and of course. I love the forecaster.
Then we justify what we justify, or we verify or corroborate whatever you want to use, confirm their opinions, and if we we agree, I like to give they were out there first, so I feel like that goofy guy on Twitter. The news was first broken by whatever. I feel like I owe the guys because they were on him a little earlier.
When I say it's obvious, I'm not trying to denigrate their great work.
Oh no, I understood. And I'm probably going overboard here, and
I just wanted to be clear about that.
I'm with you on Kikuchi. I don't know. We're in a couple leagues together. Either it was a keeper league, but I think I got you in one league.
You got him in labor, and I was mad about it.
So that's one of your
caught sleeping.
Yeah, that's one of your percentages that. Well, maybe you were only doing NFBC. I don't know.
I'm only looking.
But no, I'm with you. And perfect streaming scenario. Hopefully more. He could. And now it's this is what we were talking about earlier. We had 2 starts, 6-man rotation. So he might get 2 starts once or twice, at least be scheduled for it. But he'll be in good matchups all the time. Yeah,
and just added velo, really good underlying numbers. So
second year, another year in the league just to get in. It had to be tough. It's a tough transition anyway. But now the scenario, you can't talk to your teammates as much. Remember that whole, there were some teams that were talking about they would never see their teammates on game day until the game because it was staggered in the clubhouse and all this sort of thing. So it's I think there'll be a lot of that this year. And that's that may have been, we talk a lot about the video and other things. That's one of the things we didn't talk a lot about what could have happened last year is it was just so weird in that, literally the shortstop and second baseman may not have said hi until the first double play that they turned.
Yeah,
they didn't see each other all day.
Such a weird year. And you're right. There are so many little nuances that just threw off routines. And it's just a wacky year. And so I'm kind of trying my best to discount. Obviously some recency bias seeps in. And that's kind of the case with Jose Altuve, who's my next guy up here. Player shares 55.6%. I guess it's hard to call a guy who's going inside the top 100 a sleeper, but this guy was going in the first round for a half a decade, and now he's slipping. I was really happy to get him with James as a second base option, and now it sounds like he is indeed going to be leading off. Mm-hmm. At least that's kind of the way things are trending now. That'll pretty much do in Miles Straw as a sleeper for me.
It doesn't do in Miles Straw for me in that you can still run in the American League further down in the order.
True.
And that's what you're getting for. Now, obviously, first versus 6th, 7th, or 8th, it could be 30, 40, 50 plate appearances, 3 or 4 steals. But if that's baked into the cost, it doesn't. I'm not into Miles Straw anyway, just strategically, Mm-hmm. I'd rather have Nick
I need
Madrigal.
some power. I mean,
Yeah.
If you have that little power, it just doesn't play in a fantasy league.
In the AL, I took Nick Madrigal. I'd rather have Nick Madrigal. I feel he's safer. But yeah, no, and I'm with you on Altuve. I don't think I have any. I'm not against him. I just don't. It just never worked out that I like I said, I got 4 drafts this weekend. Maybe I'll grab some, but I like that move. And now again, is he a sleeper or is he just someone that you just have to be more aware of the news? That's the news. It's the thing that we're in the news business, which is a good thing. But we spend all this time analyzing skills and everything else. And now if you're in your drafts this weekend and you don't review the news literally during the draft, you're not doing it right. That's how things are breaking nowadays.
Yeah, download our News Center app if you want and turn on notifications. Yeah. Find some way, just maybe have Twitter open and it's another tab on the side or something. But you're right. You need to be watching during your draft for something like that Nick Anderson news or something that could drastically affect things. You know who actually went? Let me double check this, but because James and I'm not a Victor Robles guy this year, to be honest. This did happen, but we were eyeing him up because we needed some speed. We'd gone, Rendon, Ozuna, Voit. So we were looking at Robles. He went before Altuve, Victor Robles. So when you compare those guys as hitters, it's not really that close. But that's the speed game nowadays. Victor Robles getting quite a bit of inflation in these main events so far. Elias Diaz, another guy I have 5 shares of in the NFBC. I guess that just speaks to kind of my catcher approach this season, going pretty cheap and getting a guy who at Coors. I used to like him when he was with Pittsburgh. He kind of fizzled out and they gave up on him. But I did get JT Realmuto in one league, but generally I've been going cheap and getting a guy like Elias Diaz as either my catcher 2 or even in some cases my catcher 1.
Yeah, you're really pushing catch. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, like you said, Coors Field.
It is pushing. It is pushing.
It is, but once you're in that range, getting a little nerdy with value, the 27th, 8th, 29th, 30th catcher, or maybe 24th catcher, and then the 31st, 32nd, 34th, they're not that far apart. So if you want to play that game where you look for who's hot or the good matchups, you'll usually end up with someone, if you draft the 27th, 28th best catcher on your list, they're probably not going to be on your team very long. You're going to find the people that emerge. Mm-hmm. But sure, why not go for the Colorado catcher? I think I have him in matter of fact, I know I have him in NL Labor just because I had the hammer at the end. I had the $2 bids, and he was one of my $2 bids.
You got him for $2 in NL Labor? That's pretty good, it seems like.
Well, remember, it's OBP, not that matters.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
I'm just being facetious because you don't really at that point you don't care about it, right?
Yeah.
All right, I need to interrupt, Clay. I need your opinion here.
Yeah.
I just got offered a trade.
Let's hear it.
Kyle Seager, $6 option in 22, and they want my Wander Franco, $7.22. Do I hit reject right now, or do I wait to the end of the podcast?
Maybe you type out a nasty message before you before you turn it down. That's brutal, man. What? Kyle Seager for Wander Franco?
I love Kyle Seager, but I don't even think I have a team that can compete this year. But I'm not even. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you gotta start out at a better point than that. Usually, that's non-starter when you do something like that. Andrew Vaughn, another guy I have 5 shares of. James and I were lucky to get him. We talked about him earlier playing left field. Then Stephen Brault. That's not great, having 5 shares of Stephen Brault. Thankfully, those are mostly in the draft and hold leagues. I do have him in TGFBI as like my last pick. So he's going to be shut down for a month,
right?
Stephen Brault, due to a lat strain. So I'm going to be dropping him this weekend, Stephen Brault. There goes one of my sleepers. Ouch.
Yeah, but he may be someone, depending on the matchup, to reacquire in a month,
Yeah, I also this gives a boost to JT Brubaker a little bit. I took him last
Cody
night.
Ponce, who I know nothing about other than I watched him pitch one game last year. I was like, wow, that guy's not bad. Mm-hmm. I went and looked at the stats, and the stats aren't great. Number scouting, and I read some reports, including James, and I mean, there's something there with Cody Ponce. It's just he's not, not a top flight prospect. But JT Brubaker was on my radar last year. If you recall, there was talk that he might close for the Pirates, so I grabbed him for that purpose in tout, and he never closed. But the skills are there, and sure, it's a possibility. This is all about me. I have him in Tout Wars too. Name some. Are you just looking at my Tout roster?
No, actually, when we were talking about Brault, I brought up Richard Rodriguez's page because Jake Krause of MLB.com, reporting a few days ago, 5 days ago, that Richard Rodriguez has not been named the closer. He's had a rocky spring, and manager Derek Shelton has said he feels Rodriguez is better equipped as a setup man. So, David Bednar is kind of a new sleeper. I'm not really on him yet, but Kyle Crick, I know James took in the draft and hold Tout Wars. So, at least the situation that looks open that I didn't really consider open earlier in draft season. I thought Rodriguez, just with the way he finished, probably had it. Why don't you tell us about some of your sleepers, Todd, that you're ending up with a bunch of spots?
Again, I haven't done a ton yet, but it's no secret that I'm into Kolten Wong.
Oh, yes.
And a little bit higher up. I mean, he's not a deep dive. I just think, especially in Milwaukee, potentially hitting leadoff.
That's a good sleeper right there.
On that team, I think he can run, a little bit of power. I just think he's being underappreciated at that spot. And I think Cesar Hernandez is still being a bit underappreciated. I don't think he's running he's not going to steal 20, but I think he'll steal a few more bases. And I'll just add at second base, and Jonathan Scope, and this is all for a reason. 3 second baseman, Jonathan Scope of Detroit, full-time at bats. Not a great lineup, but from where you're drafting Scope, if you get the power, you'll get runs and RBI commensurate with a 300 pick, but you'll get more homers than other players in that area. But the point being, with 3 second basemen that I like at that point, and a couple others as well, one of the picks I just don't understand is Ozzie Albies this year.
And I heard you and Liz talking about that.
Yeah, it's probably you listen. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't get enough right now.
Tied to a chair or something.
I'm a podcast and radio fiend right now. I got the fire burn. I just turn on pods and radio and just have that on in the background for most of the day.
There we go. Yeah. So the point, is just that people reaching because there's not very many good second basemen. I don't think you have to. So if so I'm not to call them sleepers. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think I need to reach for a second baseman because I'm perfectly happy landing on any of those guys. Even Ryan McMahon qualifies at second base. There's a few other guys that are available a little bit later on. Let's see some other players that I sort of like. I've talked about several throughout the course of the season, and
just a few.
Neither of these guys are in advantageous scenarios at this point, but I'm not giving up, and that's Edward Olivares and Jared Oliva for some cheap speed. I think they'll both eventually be called up, or and do the job. So maybe not draft them, but keep an eye on them. Read the news, read the tea leaves, and try to get them a week or two before they're actually called up. All right, I'll stay on Pittsburgh. Gregory Polanco. All right. Last year, he fanned 40% of the time, something like that. But when he hit the ball, he still crushed it. The StatCast levers were still really strong, except that strikeout, which was, deep, deep, deep blue. He's healthy this spring, and he's hitting the ball hard, and the strikeouts are down. He was, I don't know what round he was before, but he was a top 150 player, right? In that neighborhood.
Yeah, Gregory Polanco, yeah.
So I do like Polanco a lot, and you get him in the range where you draft Polanco as a flyer, and you draft David Peralta as the hedge or whatever. And if Polanco doesn't work out, you throw Peralta, and you throw Peralta back in there. Although you may want to draft Peralta anyway. A guy I've been on, Alex Dickerson.
Oh yeah.
And it's the what if. What if Oracle Park continues to play favorably? I've contracted our colleague Ray Flowers to put the tarp over the holes so that the wind stays the same. And if he's not able to do it, I'll get Eno to do it, or Howard Bender. I'll get one of our San Francisco colleagues. Yeah, Bender. Actually, Bender's the one that would do it. Bender, I'll send you a case of Peeps, and he'd be out there and he'd be putting it up there. No, but my point being, it's the what if game. What if the ball is a little dejuiced? people are ignoring it. I did a Twitter poll. People don't care. The touts don't care. I mean, I was a little surprised how little credence is given to the fact that the ball might be. We don't know what's going to happen, so we're not going to worry about it. I'm not making huge adjustments, but I think if no one cares about it, and you even make a small adjustment, you can take advantage of it. So. And the same idea, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but the same idea with Oracle. We don't know that the park is going to continue to play a little more hitter favorably, but if it does, Alex Dickerson, Brandon Belt is another one that again, not a sleeper, but just someone, again, what's the definition of sleeper? Someone who I think I'm ahead of the field on is Brandon Belt. And I'd like Brandon Belt as my corner, because what if, I know he's a little older, move the fences in, what if the play at the park continues to favor left-handed hitting like it did last year?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, before we wrap things up today, another word from a sponsor here, our friends at Stable Duel. Baseball has always been America's pastime, but a close second is horse racing, and we've got the best way to get in on the action. Stable Duel brings a new way to play the races against your friends. Similar to what we know only in fantasy football and baseball, you select your team or your stable of horses and compete against other stables for big money prizes. Watch your stable move up the leaderboard as your horses accumulate points based on where they finish the race. The app is free to download, and they offer free games, so you can download and learn how to play at zero risk. Don't know anything about horse racing? Don't worry. The app has all you need to know with free data on each horse's record, as well as a risk number, a speed number, and a value number for your best selections. This is the first game of its kind in horse racing, and you don't want to miss out. Download the Stable Duel app now and get in the game. Play, race, win with Stable Duel. So, Todd, I got to be honest, I'm not really in on those outfielders you mentioned. I think I'd rather roll the dice on a guy like Avisail Garcia, who looks a little squeezed right now, but I do think he's having a good spring, and the Brewers guys I talked to are adamant that he's going to play a lot. And another guy, this is a real deep sleeper, real deep. I didn't really think this guy had a chance to really play a ton this year, but Kyle Isbel of the Kansas City Royals and Alec Lewis of the Athletic tweeted yesterday. I just wanted to confirm that Alec Lewis, yes, he's with the Athletic. Isbel's was starting in right field. According to Mike Matheny, quote, he's another guy who's in the mix and conversation for the opening day roster, trying to get as many looks as we can before a final decision. So that's an outfielder, especially in those real deep AL only. Just to keep in mind, because he has some pedigree as a prospect.
No, I agree, and there's some opportunity there. Another along those lines, you reminded me of somebody else. This is the same theory before, like we talked about with Jefferies and Tanner Houck playing early. Jake Cave could get some early playing time with Alex Kirilloff working on. I'm not sure what he's working on in the alternate site for. The first time we made the working on his defense joke, it was hilarious. Now it's kind of trite, right?
Now
we got to think of another.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we got to think of another line what they're working on.
Yeah, he was good enough to get the call to save them in the final postseason game, but not good enough to break camp.
Yeah, well, one more year, right? It'll be part of the CBA. Knock on wood, they'll get it figured out. They'll get it taken care of. Not hopefully anyway. You'd like to think, but we'll see. But anyway, at the point, hopefully this time next year we won't be talking about them being on strike because of it. We'll still be talking ball, but not. You shall see what happens. But no, Jake Cave has filled in for Byron Buxton primarily in the past. Again, mixed leagues, he's off the radar because he's only going to play 30% of the time. But he could be playing every week, every day for 3 weeks, in which case he's going to be giving good production, and then you drop him and you go somewhere else. So if you're, even if you just draft him as reserve in the NFBC just to see what happens, and he may end up playing. You get 3 weeks worth of production, you drop him. So in an AL only, I like him because he's not costing anything, and he's going to be playing all year. He's going to be up all year. What if Buxton gets hurt again? Oh no! What if play the what if game?
Yeah,
it should be when he gets hurt again. So Cave is another guy. I like these players that are going to play early, and you don't know if they'll continue to play. But you couldn't play this game years ago because there weren't as moves weren't as free. You didn't have as many transaction periods. Guys are stuck on your roster. We couldn't do this in labor because, if you drafted Cave in labor, he's on, unless you want to drop him, he's on your roster. If you get him for $1, that's fine. But with leagues having so much transaction ability now, I love playing the who's going to fill in for the injured guy for 3 weeks. Maybe he gets hot and keeps the job. If not, you find somebody else game.
Absolutely.
I need another nickname for that game. It's too long.
That's a bit of a mouthful, I'd say.
Yeah,
But Emilio Pagan, I want to mention just because I got him for $1. He's a big riser now. Do you think he's the closer? I mean, it's kind of hard to wrestle with the idea that they brought in Melancon. Like, why would you bring in that guy if he wasn't going to close? But there was a pretty strong report. Maybe it was Kevin Acey of the San Diego Union Tribune who he said there's a strong possibility it will be Pagan.
I think you have to go with it. Possession, 9/10 of the law, whatever. If he earns it, he earns it. There are, they have parachutes, right? They've got exit strategies with Pomeranz and, like you say, Melancon. I agree. I mean, you said it before. I'm not saying this is you. It's just the manager said that he's better suited for the 8th inning role. So that means we'd rather have him blow the game in the 8th and blow it in the 9th. I mean, if you're good enough to pitch when the game's on the line in the 7th or 8th, I mean, he can't handle the pressure in the 9th. Okay, but my point being, I was with you on Melancon. You don't sign Melancon unless you're going to use him in the 9th inning. But why? I mean, why not use him in the 7th or 8th? It's if you can get guys out in the 9th, you can get guys out earlier. Well, if we blow the game earlier, I don't know. But anyway, it's like a Stratomatic approach, I suppose. But I'm with you on Pagan. Good pitcher as well.
Yeah, he got jumped pretty high in our main event. I was eyeing him up, but he's being drafted quite a bit higher. People are buying in, and I am buying into that report myself, even though I did grab Melancon in a few spots earlier. I feel like I have to mention, maybe I'm contractually obligated to mention Aaron Savali. I like the pitch mix. I think it's a quality pitch mix. I like the command. I love that Tito just lets his guys go. He's an old school guy, and so I think Cleveland pitchers will be turned loose for the most part, unlike a lot of guys.
Well, that keys me off on another Cleveland pitcher.
Who's that?
Make sure you draft the right one. Sorry, Vlad. Logan Allen.
Yeah, you do want to draft the right one.
Unfortunately,
there's two in that same system, right?
Yeah, our buddy Vlad Sedler in a draft and hold inadvertently drafted the wrong Logan Allen.
Yeah,
and
they're both lefties too. That's so annoying.
Right. Had he realized and alerted me, we would have flipped it. But he didn't find out until the next guy drafted the other Logan, the real Logan Allen. At that point, we couldn't flip it. But my point being, Logan Allen. And again, it's weird for a group of people in industry that don't care about spring stats. We sure seem to care about spring stats. Logan Allen is crushing it this spring, and I don't necessarily care about it because he's a new pitcher, but it could buy him an opportunity.
Yeah,
and that's what's more important to me is the opportunity. And like you mentioned, to borrow our colleague Jeff Erickson's phrase, appealing to authority, the Indians have had some success. Even Corey Kluber. Let's go back as far as Corey Kluber, as far as extracting more out of some arms than expected. You mentioned Savali, Plesac, it's even Bieber. So I'm not, Logan Allen to me is another deep league sleeper. The one that's actually working now.
Yeah, that is something you're gonna have to be sure if you want Logan Allen. I was kind of on Cal Quantrill, but props to Logan Allen. He beat him out seemingly pretty handily this spring. I like Maikel Pineda. I've got him for $1 in multiple leagues. Fine with him at $1. He's got that Michael Pineda reputation, but he's pretty good. Brady Singer, I like a lot too. I've written about him a few times. Just that combination of ground balls and Ks, limited walks in the home park. I think it's a pretty nice combination. Trevor Rogers, I mentioned earlier. Now I'm going to bring up some of my other drafts that I've done just to rattle off some other names. Josh Rojas. I'm fully in on the Josh Rojas train. This is the spring of Josh Rojas, apparently. Jose Rojas, too, is making waves.
He's one of the early guys for me. He's one of the guys that is going to play early, maybe get you some bags. I'm not as convinced that he's going to continue to play, but I think he has a shot to earn it. I mean, Cole Calhoun isn't going to be out that long, and you can move Kettle Marte back and forth. And if Rojas earns the job and Eduardo Escobar becomes a utility man, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But that's what's going to happen is Escobar is going to have to be the utility if Rojas continues to hit. Marte stays in center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I also mentioned Nick Pivetta. I guess I'm the last sucker on earth when it comes to Nick Pivetta.
That's the Red Sox fan, me. Oh, man. As much as I love what the offense is doing, the fact that you have to start Nathan Eovaldi on opening day and, Pivetta, I mean, we'll see what happens. Glass half full, Zola. Smile.
Elvis Andrus was a guy I got in labor, and I got him last night in the stake league for $3. That's my middle. I just needed some speed. In a mixed league, I think that's okay. And then Maikel Franco, maybe I'm just digging my heels in a little bit and hoping for the best after getting him for $1. But I got him for $4 last night, and he just came in and immediately hit a homer. So I know he has language in his contract that will allow him to go down. Maybe that's still a possibility. But the fact that Maikel Franco just came in and was hitting a bomb immediately, I would have to think they start this guy on the big league roster.
If he doesn't, it's up soon. And he's not an extreme fly ball hitter, but he's ample fly balls. And intuitively, he's like a high strikeout guy. He's not. He strikes out in the teens. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it before. Make contact, hit the ball in the air, Camden yards. It's a pretty good recipe for success.
I also kind of buying in on Chris Archer, I have to say, although I still don't know how they're going to utilize those guys. And also on that Rays staff, Shane McClanahan. Do not sleep on Shane McClanahan. He's down right now, but he's going to remain a starter. And he's nasty. I was watching him this spring, and he's Shane McClanahan. I'm fully in on it. And also, I'll mention on the same team, Manuel Margot is a sleeper for me. I love him as a speed play who's just not a bad hitter. He's a lot of these guys who give you speed just really highly questionable with the bat, and I think Margot's bat is better than a lot of the speed plays.
And the defense should keep him in the lineup. Tampa, as we joke about, is like a Stratomatic team where they love the platoons. They just don't have the inventory to platoon as much this year. They don't have the natural lefty-righty setup. Sure, there'll be some when Choi comes back first base with Yandy Diaz, et cetera, but a guy like Margot could play a lot. And I'm with you. I think, he could be it used to be 15-15 was nothing. Now 15-15 is a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. To get 15 steals and 15 homers from the same player. So I'm with you there. I know, not so much off topic, but and it's not like I couldn't just DM Jason Collette and find out. I'm wondering if Brent Honeywell is throwing a screwball. I know he's back pitching again.
I think he did throw one.
Yeah, I'm curious because first of all, it's just fun to watch.
Yeah,
I don't know if you were at the AFL the year that he was pitching, but it's just fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Watch the batters just kind of like, what was that? But with all the injuries, all the surgeries and rehab, I was just curious if he's continuing to throw the screwball again. Like I couldn't text a couple people and get the answer.
I saw maybe the pitching ninja. Maybe he got the Rob Friedman treatment, okay. But I did see one. I hope I'm pulling for Brent Honeywell. What a tough couple of years he's had, but yeah, seeing him in the fall league a few years ago was pretty amazing. Not going to qualify as a sleeper for anyone who follows prospects at all, or even if you just follow the majors. But Jared Kelenic, I've been ended up with a ton of spots, and I kind of think like Mark Canha too. So I'll just mention him. I'm just looking over a few of my other rosters. Brady Singer I mentioned. Chris Martin kind of qualifies as a decent sleeper.
Would you, if you can do it, and I did, I did this in NL Labor. It's not as it's Labor where you don't need two closers, but if you can peg Martin and Will Smith, you have a closer.
That's a great idea, yeah.
And same with Barnes and Ottavino. I love trying to pair those guys. I draft champions tonight with the 4th pick. So I'm not really at a wheel, but it wouldn't shock me if like the 12th and 13th, whatever the odd and even rounds are, I'm not doing the math in my head, 12th, 13th, 14th, in that range, I double tapped, Smith and Martin in a draft champions type format. I love that idea. Real quick, back to my theory, not theory, but approach of a guy that might play early. Jake Fraley, you mentioned Kelenic. Jake Fraley may break camp as the left fielder, probably doesn't hold the job, but for 4 weeks, could give regular playing time, give regular production, and then you figure it out later. We're going to be figuring out so much later naturally this season. Mm-hmm. Heck, why not start from week 1?
True. I'll mention 2 other names on that Seattle team. Taylor Trammell, Seems like James Anderson not really buying as much into it, but he has a chance to break camp, and he's got some pedigree, certainly. And then Logan Gilbert. I actually took him in the stake league. Yeah, young guy, didn't have a ton of reps this spring, but it sounds like they're expecting him to take the ball a lot in in a month or so. So
6-man rotation, I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I just needed a starter. I had like JT Brubaker. And so I was like, yeah, I could wait out Logan Gilbert. So that'll be the last sleeper of mine today.
Well, we'll stay on the same team. I'm surprised you didn't mention Ty France.
Yeah. I haven't been as much into him, but I get that he's crushing.
And he's like the third string catcher too, right? So in your one game eligibility, you may have Ty France as your catcher. So no, yeah. I don't know where he's going to play, but I think to me, he's like Ty Wigington. I don't know where he's going to play. He's just going to play. And I think, again, for somebody like myself who says don't worry about spring stats, I've mentioned 5 guys who are hot this spring. So
I admit whenever I was talking with James, we were debating, I would look up their spring stats just because if it's really bad, maybe I get scared off. But that's a stupid thing to do, I know. But especially if the plate skills are off, I'm worried that they might get off to a slow start if they're K'ing a lot and walking very little.
Well, again, with a guy like France, I didn't know where he was going to play, but the fact that he's hitting so well, Scott Service will find a place for him. Mm-hmm. It's not, to me, the OPS, et cetera, isn't as important as the fact that he's probably winning a job in the manager's mind, and we'll take it from there.
Well, awesome stuff, Todd. Really appreciate your insight. Anything else on your mind you want to mention?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier. And with the tout tables coming back, folks, if you're looking for something else to read, toutwords.com. We got an interesting piece coming out a little bit later today. But no, in general, next time we talk, at least on the podcast, I'll be 1/2 my way done through my vaccination, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Congrats! That's great.
We'll go from there. But not everybody will be joining me soon enough, hopefully, and we'll be going to ball games and everything else. But this time next week, my friend, to start, pitching.
Yeah, and we'll start that up for 6 months.
Yeah, we'll just let everybody know now that there will be a pitching grid out on Tuesday to cover the 4 and 11-day weeks. Because enough leagues now you do a short week, and then again on Friday to Saturday there'll be the standard 7-day. So for those asking, yes, we will do rankings for 4, and some people combine the first 2 weeks into one. So we'll have 4 and 11-day, and they'll be spot on accurate because that's just the way they are.
Yeah, not hard to guess at all. But no, great work. And also, if you want more sleepers, you in your latest Z Files writing about pitchers who could benefit from the D-juice ball, right?
Yes, I don't have it in front of me. Matt Boyd was on that list, and there was some big names. Luis Castillo was on that list. Garrett Cole. Now Garrett Cole's not important in that. Oh, he's really good. But if you're going to draft a pitcher first, right now DeGrom's going before Cole primarily because of better ratios. Cole has more strikeouts, but if Cole gives up a couple fewer homers, and the ERA is comparable, that makes Cole better than the better number 1 pick. So it's just something. Again, it's not I'm not changing rankings. It's a yellow flag. It's a tiebreaker for me, but it's something to keep in mind. If the ball is softened, there will be effects, and maybe we need to think about them.
Well, awesome. We'll check that out on the site this weekend. You mentioned the RotoWire Roundtable, a final update with me, Jeff, Todd, and Eric Halterman. And, check out Todd's pitcher rankings as well next week. Thank you so much, Todd. Thank you all for listening. Hope you'll join us again next week on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.